Hey, welcome to today's episode of Church Data Management. It's not really a regular episode, but we're going to be talking about church data management today, partially because of an email I recently got from Google. Google has this great website called Think with Google, and it's basically a bunch of marketing insights, marketing tools, and trends that Google has compiled and then sends out about 1 million emails roughly a day to keep up with that. So most of those emails I tend to either skim over or ignore, but I got one recently that really made me pause, and it had a big image at the top that said, weekly thought starter, 17% of advertisers say that they are looking at the performance of all of their digital channels together in one place. And I paused because 17% of people who are looking at all of their efforts in one dashboard, one place, one location, actually seems kind of high to me. In fact, most of the people that I know that do look at all of their data in one place, all of their data from all of their channels in one place, is because they only have one channel. So with that being said, what can we as churches or nonprofits do to increase that number? And why should we? Well, the biggest reason that we should is because we're letting valuable information go by the wayside. We're letting actionable data slip through the cracks. So why are churches so prone to data silos? Well, Google had another statistic, and this is all on the blog. You can kind of check out the blog post as well. But 25% of advertisers cited organizational and structural challenges as the number one reason that they haven't adopted a data-driven attribution model. So, and I find this true to be true with churches as well. And even with that 25%, I break that down into 3 different categories. Number one is a lack of tools or know-how. So most churches and most nonprofits are fairly small. They don't necessarily have a data or communications team. They'll have a data/communications person who's also supposed to be doing something else. In fact, the data and communication side of things isn't even their main job usually. A lot of times it's given to the youngest person on staff or the secretary who's already got a lot on her plate. So this person isn't a communications expert. They're not a data expert. They're not a data scientist or analyst. So they just simply lack the tools or know-how to manage the data that they're receiving. The second typical reason that I found is lack of desire from leadership. The leadership doesn't care. They've got other things they want to do. In fact, sometimes, I'm not saying your church or nonprofit is like this, but some churches and nonprofits are really only looking for data that confirms that they're doing the right thing already. So if you're one of those, don't do that, because you're never going to learn when you're only looking for yes data. You need to look for things that are going to help you change and grow as an organization. So lack of desire from leadership, and partially leadership does look at some data, but they don't want to look at all of the data. They prioritize the data. So they'll say this data is more important. Our weekly attendance, our weekly giving, that's more important than our social data. And this kind of ties into the third reason, the lack of access to all channels. Churches and nonprofits tend to prioritize their data. And it's true, data does have a different levels of priorities, but the data feeds into each other. So if your attendance is going up or going down, it's probably affected by the rest of your channels, email, social, physical mail, whatever else is going on. You can find a lot of that data that explains your top priority data in your other data channels. So if you don't have methods to put all of that together, you're never going to be able to connect the dots. So how can we connect the dots? Google suggests a 4-step process. And I think that this is pretty applicable to churches and nonprofits as well, with a few minor tweaks. Number one, the most important thing is to define success. What does success look like for your church as a whole, and for data management, and for your nonprofit, what does success look like? And for churches and nonprofits, it's different than with regular for-profit businesses. Your goal isn't to necessarily make as much money as possible. That's not your bottom line. Your bottom line is souls. You're in the business of people. So what does success look like for you? Is it attendance? Is it giving? And you can prioritize that success. The second step is to connect the attribution results to church nonprofit results. So what I mean by that, if your goal is to increase giving, then it's important to follow the data trail left by people who reached that point. So how are they getting from your giving button on your website? Where are they coming from? Are they coming from directly from an email, from social media, or what's most likely a combination of those? And how does that affect your message that you start on Sunday morning and communicate throughout the week with the value of giving? Thirdly is to align incentives. Make sure everybody on your team is on the same page. Don't have the high school ministry working at cross purposes with the social media ministry, or the sports ministry at cross purposes with the Sunday morning worship team. And somebody somewhere needs to complement the women's ministry. And finally, build a process for taking action. So once you know what success looks like, once you're able to measure that success and align your incentives, then start turning it into a process. Make sure that that flattens out all of the silos. So don't be afraid to get started. If you have any questions, give me a call, email me, message me, and I'm happy to help you. But this is definitely something that your church can work on its own and find a unique method that fits for you. So go ahead and flatten those silos.